NFL tier list.
Let's get into it. So what we're going to do with this list is we're going to tell you what we think, who the actual good teams are, who the top of the league contenders are, who the solid enough teams are right below them. Then we got the decidedly mid tier. I think it's pretty clear who goes into that. Below that, it's time to start worrying. These are the teams that, maybe you're 1-3, maybe you're 0-4, but you think you still have potential. But I don't think that the Jaguars still have potential, so sorry to them. Maybe you're 2-2 even, but things are starting to look rocky. Those are the teams that you got to start looking at. They're going to be in the tank fest. And at the bottom, you've got ass. You've got the Bryce Young Panthers. You've got maybe the Jaguars. We'll see when we get to them. But the point of this exercise is this has been a weird year for the league. There's been a lot of parity. Feels like anybody's been able to beat anybody. And you've got no team that really looks like they're the dominant team that's pulling away from the pack. Bills looked like they could be it for a minute, but then they lose. Vikings, they're 4-0. They're playing well, but they have had some narrow victories. We don't know. This is a weird year. You don't have the Chiefs being dominant. You don't have any teams that you're like, hey, this team is winning the Super Bowl, or even this team is making the Super Bowl. And I think that's what's made this season fun so far. So anyway, without further ado, let's get through it. Let's say who are the actual good teams in the league. And we're going to start it off in the AFC East with the team that really brought this to life, the Buffalo Bills.
Contender.
You think they're contenders still? Now, why do you think that?
I gotta respect what they've done in the past, and to me, a sign of a good team. I hate to mention the Warriors, I really do, but a team that even throughout change, they can still sustain just about the same success. This is a different team, a lot of different faces on offense, new faces in the coaching staff, and not only does it look like they didn't skip a beat, looks like they've created a new beat, a much better beat. So
I respect where you're coming from, and I agree with you. I think that they are a contender. There are some definite question marks for this Bills team. They don't have really any receivers that stand out, and I think that was exposed a little bit as we talked about when we recapped that game against the Ravens. They struggled against the pressure the Ravens were bringing, but even when Josh Allen was able to scramble around, have time, you didn't have guys getting open and beating their man that often, and I think a lot of that comes down to they've got, they've got a rookie Keon Coleman, and they've got Khalil Shakir, they've got Curtis Samuel. They really don't have any bona fide wide receiver 1 or 2. And I know that they have so much talent around this team, and they're also with this Joe Brady offense trying to run the ball a lot more, and that is a big reason why they've been so successful is emphasizing the run. Don't make Josh Allen play hero ball. He can make plays when he needs to. I know they lost the game, but that deep bomb that he had to Shakir where he scrambled around, found him open somehow, that's the plays he can make. But don't do what Ken Dorsey did and tell him to make those the whole time, because then you get to the picks. But saying all that, they have some issues they have to work out on offense. Defense, they got banged up, and it kind of showed when they're going up against the Ravens. But I think they still are a contender. Before we move on, I do want to say with this list one caveat. From my perspective, contender is a tier that is going to be I'm going to grade really hardly to get into. So I think that one thing that people overdo is they'll say, oh, everyone's a contender. For me, a contending team is they very likely will win the Super Bowl. They're a team that are 100% up there, and they don't have a lot of holes and a lot of question marks. If you have some question marks, but you're a good team, you go into that's a solid team tier. You're a solid team. You definitely can be in the mix, but you have questions. But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up with how the grading scale works for anyone who might question why a team's ranked where they are. But moving on, we've got the New York Jets coming off of that loss to the Broncos.
So before I get my ranking, I guess I'll quickly give y'all my thing because my criteria is a little different, obviously. I will say contender for me. I like to respect what you've done in the past, as I mentioned with the Bills. Like they have been a team that's been near the AFC Championship or in the AFC Championship. And I just feel like they've just been a few plays away, and they, just if something happened a little differently, they'll be there. Um, I could very well. I think we both could very well put them in. That's a solid team. Because if you really want to be honest, really the only true contenders are the two teams that played in the Super Bowl last year. Um, but I gotta respect consistent winning. I gotta respect finding ways to win. I gotta respect finding new ways to win. I gotta respect it. And if you look good, you look good. So there we go. Who we on? The Jets?
We're on the Jets. We are
The
going through
Jets.
this by division, by the way. So AFC East at the top. We're just going to go down the division standings. On to the Jets.
See, I wouldn't be surprised if we start adding tiers as we talk about this, because where do I want to put the Jets? I don't know. Somewhere in between time to start worrying and decidedly mid. But I think I'll put them in decidedly mid because the silence is worrying, isn't it? Every time I go silent. Every time. Um, I guess if I go silent, we just throw them shit straight into decidedly mid. Aaron Rodgers, he's been decent. I mean, that team just does not move a needle for me at all in any way, shape, or form. It seems like every time we talk about how good their defense is supposed to be, they give up a lot of points. Anytime we talk about how their offense should be good, they don't score. It just seems like that's a very unbalanced team right now. The harmony's messed up. It's just, I'll give them mid because I feel like they can still be better. I don't really want to throw them in time to start worrying because they're sitting at 2-2. I don't think you should be worrying at 2-2. Um, but I'll give them mid. I'll give them mid.
I'll say I'm putting them in mid. I mean, with the defense they have, can't really put them much lower than that. They're going to carry games. This was a bit of a weird game, though. The Broncos were the absolute perfect matchup, like perfect matchup to counter the Jets' offense. They have a really good D-line that is really good at getting after the quarterback, but also has been the best run defense in the league this season, which has been surprising because they have a lot of guys that are explosive pass rusher type guys, and you'd expect them to be successful there. But they've also gotten after the quarterback well. Gotten after the run game well, and they were able to shut down Breece Hall and a very good rush offense. But the other thing, they have Pat Surtain. He can go lock down a number one receiver. He locked down Garrett Wilson. If Garrett Wilson's getting locked down, the run game has to be firing for the Jets because they don't have another receiver outside of him. I mean, you got Allen Lazard as your number two, I guess. But this was the perfect matchup. I think the Jets are one of those teams that they're going to be around the fringe of making the playoffs because they have a good defense. They do have Aaron Rodgers, but they're decidedly mid. I mean, there's not a better tier to put them in. But moving on, we've got the Patriots.
Ass.
Yeah, man. I don't think there's much to say about them. Respect to them getting a win week one. Respect to them for showing some fight in their games. I mean,
And respect for them for not just outright gonna kill Drake May week one. Shout out.
yes.
At least they're waiting for his funeral later on this year. I respect it.
And that might be the one saving grace for his career because if he was starting right now behind this O-line, he might retire having to put up with this being like, you know what? Let me just go sell insurance. I don't want to play this
He
football
said
stuff
Andrew
anymore,
Luck
having to
had
play
a point.
behind this O-line.
Andrew Luck had a point. That's what he's gonna say. All right. So
But
yeah,
yeah,
ass. Ass
Patriots
till
suck.
further notice.
We're not going to waste time on them. On to the Dolphins. I think we can just off the bat put them in. We'll say time to start worrying.
Time to start worrying. Your quarterback got some head issues, and not the good head issues, the bad head issues. And Tyreek Hill looks like shit. It's time, and Jalen Waddle, I don't know where the hell he's been, where the hell he's at. Maybe he's in a jail cell somewhere in Miami. I don't know.
He's probably on
Trying
that
to start
boat that
working.
Odell rented in Miami.
God, I was see we ain't on the same page. I was really finna make a joke about the damn boat. I was gonna make the joke about the boat.
It's crazy how streaming for 2 hours together every week will put you on the same wavelength.
Yeah, same wavelength. Damn it, Preston and Aaron. I'm blaming them.
But I'm blaming Preston because he was actually here earlier and then he had to dip out. But yeah, I mean, Dolphins, there's not much to say about them either. They are they are ass right now. The only reason that they're not down there is Tua could come back and the offense could get better. Other than that, they got a lot of holes, but let's not waste too much time on them. Moving to the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who came into the week undefeated before losing to Joe Flacco, which, I mean, what a storyline that is. Joe Flacco doing what he did with the Browns, just coming in and balling out. But Pittsburgh Steelers leading that division, where do you put them?
I think at 3-1, I think it'd be a little unfair for me to call them decidedly mid. And considering, I mean, can we call Justin Fields a backup quarterback? It looks like he's gonna win that job.
I think it's his job for sure.
I think it's his job. At least if it's not completely his job, it's his job to lose now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'll give him. That's a solid team. I mean, shout out Mike Tomlin. I mean, the guy is allergic to losing seasons, isn't he? I mean, he's gonna find a way to win, no matter who he has. So once again, I gotta respect the history. I gotta respect the coaching. And sitting at 3-1, leading the division. So shout out.
I mean, as long as Tomlin's there, I don't think you could put them any lower. Their defense, I mean, Flacco kind of cooked them, but overall, their defense is one of the best in the league. And offensively, you really got to love what they're doing, getting the most out of Fields. And, I mean, hey, this might be going back to what we constantly say. Put a quarterback in a good situation, and they'll probably perform, and at the very least, will look better than they did. It's exactly what's happening with Fields. It's just crazy to say that the Steelers' offense is a good situation, but they've created a good situation for him. They're a solid team. I definitely wouldn't call them a contender unless Fields can take another step, but they're off to a good start. And as we move on, we've got the Ravens. Started off 0-2, started off dead, fire Harbaugh. Well, here we are now. 2 wins in a row, albeit one being against the Cowboys, but beat the absolute shit out of the Bills. Derrick Henry runs all over them. Looks like a vintage performance, but this is just what he does. Doesn't matter how old he is, he still runs the ball so well. Where do you put the Ravens?
Man, according to the Kelvin criteria of respecting the past and just understanding how football works, I said in previous weeks they just had to recalibrate. But I ain't really worried. They had to recalibrate. Figure out how to use this offense with Derrick Henry and just lean into that. You got damn Derrick Henry. The offense don't have to be tricky dick shit. We have Derrick Henry. You can go ahead and play smash mouth football. Now the only thing I will say, man, could you imagine if you had Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Taysom Hill on the same damn team?
Whew.
I mean, that might be 1,000 yards rushing a
Whenever
game.
Taysom Hill's healthy.
Yeah, whenever Taysom Hill's lung doesn't collapse from being the best player of all time. Um, yeah, that might be 1,000 yards rushing game. But I'm putting them in contender because they're trending up. They're trending up. They're gaining some steam. They say hop on the Henry train. Well, god damn it. It's like a steam train, man. A steam train takes a little minute to warm up, but once that motherfucker get going, it's real hard to stop it. So
I'm going to put them in solid team right here. I think that they definitely can move up to contender. The only reason I'm putting them in solid team right now is they are 2-2. They do still have to battle for their division, and we've seen in that division anyone can beat anyone, and it's going to be tough sledding, tough competition. And I also think the Steelers could match up well and split. They could easily have a split, each win their home game. So, still got some work to do for the Ravens, just since they dug themselves into an 0-2 hole, but they do look like a really great team. And another thing we're going to do, I'm going to put them at the front of that's a solid team. Because right now I think that they might be the best team in that tier. At the very least, I think they're better than the Steelers' record. I know records don't say the same, but I think the Ravens, like you said, and we talked about this a lot before, so I'm not going to harp too much on it. I love what they're doing with their offense. Because last 2 years ago, the whole talk was they're too one-dimensional. They run the ball too much. They need to open it up. They bring in Todd Monken. He tries to open up the offense. It works pretty well. I mean, Lamar has a good passing season. Looks good throwing the ball, but they just really don't have the personnel for that to be great. They have Zay Flowers. They have Mark Andrews. I know he hasn't done anything this year, but let's say they have those two guys. You could throw Likely in there, sure, but they really only have one wide receiver who's a threat. They don't have a passing offense. This year, there were some questions, and I think one of them that we'll see is how it lasts. They lost a lot of talent on the O-line, but they go bring in Derrick Henry, and they say, you know what? We're going to run the ball, and we're going to run it a ton. Because we've got Lamar Jackson, and if we have a good running back to pair with him, well, what do? Because if you sell out to stop Henry, Lamar just keeps it. If you sell out to stop Lamar, Henry will run all over you. So I think it's just really a great job of designing the offense, and especially with all these defenses are designed to stop the pass. So if we can run it on you, we will. I think it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses. Does that continue? Do they have that success? But they are definitely at the top of that's a solid team. I said I wasn't going to talk a lot about them, and then I go off into that whole soliloquy. So let's move on to the Cleveland Browns. 1-3. Technically, they are tied for third in their division, but where do you want to rank them?
I think because nasty man Diddy Watson is the quarterback, I'll have to throw him at ass. And that's very unironic that I'm throwing Deshaun Watson into ass. But here we are. I'm doing it. It hurts my heart to do it. I just don't understand that team right now. And if I don't understand your team right now, I'm gonna put you in ass. I can't say time to start worrying because
Yeah, I'm making an amendment right now because I put it at time to start worrying at first because we're only through 4 weeks. There's a lot of time in the season. I think that I think we need to say time to panic. I think that's a better tier for that because time to start worrying is kind of close to decidedly mid. Time to panic, that's a team like the Browns right now. I think they're a step above ass because they at least have a decent defense, although it's struggled a bit. They have potential to maybe get better at quarterback if Jameis Winston can go off, but they're $500 million man. I know he's not that much, but he's close. He's playing like absolute ass. Deshaun Watson, he's ass. The Browns, it's time to panic.
See, I'm just being a little unfair. I think I did ass. I did ass for the jokes. I did it for the memes. I did. I'm be honest with y'all.
But I think also when it's time to start worrying,
is right.
Yeah, no, this is the time to panic tier. Because if you're the Dolphins, you're panicking. If you're the Browns, you're panicking. You're not just starting to worry. The panic set in.
See, that's just so odd. Because like, what are you panicking for? I mean, what did you expect? You know.
For the Browns, you expected them to be a playoff team.
You know what? I say that Nick Chubb, his practice window got opened up today. So, hey,
no.
Maybe.
No.
Maybe.
No.
Maybe.
Listen.
Maybe.
Listen. I don't know if you have him on a fantasy team. If you do,
well, I do, which is why I'm doing this.
That's what I was thinking.
Change anything. I know he ain't.
No,
but one can.
That's not what I'm getting at. What I was getting at is if you have him on your fantasy team, slow your roll. Whenever he comes back, first of all, they open this window. He might not come back until the very end of that window, as you see teams lots of times will do. They will open their window, realize the guy's not ready, and then bring him back at the end when they have to. Maybe he comes back sooner, but when he comes back, for anyone out here who has him on your roster, do not start him immediately, and don't start him the next week either, because he had a very major knee injury where it was multiple ligaments, which what that means is when you have multiple ligament tears, you have to wait for one ligament to heal to be able to go and fix other, because you go fix, like not fully heal, but you go fix, say you tear your PCL and your ACL. Say you go fix your PCL. You do that, you got to let the swelling subside before you can go in and fix the ACL. So it's a step-by-step process to go fix all these ligaments. which means the recovery time is going to be pushed back until the last surgery is completed instead of when the first one is. The other thing is, there's been all these videos you see, oh, Nick Chubb's running, Nick Chubb's doing all this. It's not that hard to run after getting your ACL fixed. The thing that takes time is being able to make cuts and do all these dynamic moves. As a running back, that is very important to be able to do. So basically, the point of all I'm saying is, you may see all these videos hyping him up and think, oh, Nick Chubb's going to be back. When he comes back, they're going to ease in his workload because, especially if they're sucking this season, he's already getting older. They don't want to completely break him by making him be their workhorse right away. He's going to be eased back in, and you really want to evaluate how good does he actually look on the football field. Is he comfortable on that knee? Is he able to make all these cuts and do all this before you go throw him in? So just a little fantasy advice for everyone out here with a little bit of medical perspective. But anyway, Browns, time to panic. Your season's probably cooked. Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals. That is a fun one right there.
Time to panic.
Time to panic.
I will say time to panic, but you got to win. But you're still panicking because you're sitting at 1-3 when you were supposed to be competing with the Ravens for top of the division. And lo and behold, both of y'all ain't even at the top of the division. So, time to panic. 100%.
Shout out the Steelers.
Time to panic because you have a running back by committee. I'm a point this out right now. I don't like running back by committee. I don't like it because I feel like you have commitment issues. And I feel like when you have commitment issues, you don't trust your running backs. And I feel like you should trust either Chase Brown or you should trust either Zach Moss. Now, because Zach Moss on my fantasy team, I'm going to tell you, trust Zach Moss.
And because I have Chase Brown on my fantasy team, I'm going to tell you, trust the more efficient back who has looked like he has
Chase
more
Brown
burst and looks better.
This week. Yeah, 23 this week, and Zach Moss at 17. So it looks like we both are winning. So
except I didn't start him because Chase Brown hasn't done shit all season. So
exactly. You know who has done shit all season is Zach Moss, which is exactly why you should trust Zach Moss.
If you look at efficiency, though, Chase Brown does look like the more explosive back. But with running backs by committee, I love running backs by committee if you have two good running backs that you trust. And
David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs.
That is exactly what I was going to get at. I was going to say, you either have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, where you just slot either one in and you say, hey, I don't care if it's goal line, if it's passing, I trust both of them to do both. That's what the Lions do. Or if it's you have two very different running backs and you're going to utilize them in unique ways, like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, where you had the boom and zoom. You go Kamara, you can utilize them in the pass game. You utilize them in outside runs. You get them into space. Mark Ingram, just go run it up the middle. Go get us whatever yards we need. If we need 4 yards for a first down, he'll go get those 4 yards. If we need 3, he'll get those 3. And that's how you have to have a committee. When you have a committee, just because you don't trust either back, since neither of them really show enough, like the Dallas Cowboys are a perfect example. They're running back by committee because all their running backs are mid. That's when it gets bad. But for the Bengals, I mean, statistically, they would be the first team to ever win the Super Bowl starting the season 0-3. So their season's probably dead already if you look at it that way. But Zach Taylor, I mean, if you've watched any of our content about the Bengals, you know my thoughts on him. I think he is a terrible coach. I think he lucked into a Super Bowl run. Good on him getting them there. Good on him getting them there. I'll give him his flowers for that, but before that, Bengals fans all wanted him gone. After that, he hasn't done anything since. You know who that sounds a whole lot like? Nick Sirianni, Doug Peterson. And look at how they're doing. Look at how the Bengals are doing. I see a similar trajectory for all three of those teams. It's definitely time to panic. You got your win, albeit against the Panthers, but you can't keep digging yourself into a hole like this every season and then expect success, because then you need perfection every other week. You're behind pace in your division. You're 2 games back in your division already. You're going to be fighting for the wild card. That's unless you make a deep playoff run, that's a bad season already. But I digress.
you have question marks on payment. Money. T. Higgins. What do you do with that? You got Jamar Chase. He wants his money. So your top two receivers want their money. You've already let Tyler Boyd walk, who I think was a pretty good wide receiver three to complement these guys.
And you've already paid Joe
Um,
Burrow, so that's a lot of your cap already being taken up.
you paid Joe Burrow, and you've invested a little bit in the O lines. You paid some of those guys,
And it still sucks.
and it still sucks. And then on top of that, every single year you keep losing another piece of your defense. So at what point is this just going to fall apart? And on top of that, you lost Joe Mixon. And like I said, running back by committee, and it ain't a good running back by committee. It's a committee because you don't trust. So time to panic because
Time
now you have questions, more questions than you have answers.
time to panic and time for us to move on because we're supposed to get through all of these teams, and we're turning this into just the second half of our recap stream where we go in depth into every team. So let's keep it moving a little bit. Houston Texans, I think it's pretty easy where they rank. They're a solid
Solid team.
team.
Yep.
That
Explanation? Don't think we need one.
if
Solid
you
team.
if you want to if you want to look at them, they're a team that they could be a contender. They've got a lot to like, but they still have some question marks. They're still a young team. Solid team. Excited to see how they progress. Moving on, Indianapolis Colts. Where do you rank them?
Man, I can't give them time to panic. Maybe you could give them time to panic because Anthony Richardson is hurt again. Maybe you panic because of that, but you got the city slicker himself, the savior of franchises, apparently, Joe Flacco. So maybe you don't panic. So I'm gonna give him mid because you got to win. Give him mid.
I think the one thing keeping them out of time to panic is they have Joe Flacco. So even if Richardson misses some time, Flacco's shown that he just doesn't. He's a cockroach. He just doesn't die. He'll just come into whatever team he's on. When their quarterback gets hurt, he just performs well enough. That being said, it's not like they're a great team. I mean, Flacco, shout out to him, but they're decidedly mid. Tennessee Titans.
Well, before I say something, I gotta mention this too, real quick. So Joe Flacco, shout out to him, and this is gonna be news, right? Big news for me. So there's a company called Cadix Cleats, and these are the cleats that Joe Flacco wears. Joe Flacco wears these cleats, and it's also the same cleats that I wear because these cleats have smart studs, which are the spikes at the bottom, the little studs at the bottom. They move when you take a step, when you cut, when you plant. These studs move and adjust so you don't get caught in grass or turf, and it'll basically lowers your chance of ACL or any other knee ligament issues. Same with ankle and same with Achilles. And for those who don't know, I ruptured my Achilles last year before the season started. So I reached out to them when they were seems like just starting out. I saw them earlier this year, I think in like January. Got a pair of cleats. They sent me a pair. I felt like, luckily I got me a pair before they were all out because they were still prototyping. They were still, still really early on. It was pre-orders at the time. And then now there's a couple NFL players getting on to it. Joe Flacco, I think today went on the Pat McAfee show and shouted out these cleats because they asked him about the cleats. And here's big thing that I wanted to mention. So tomorrow, Caddick Cleats is actually coming to watch me practice to do a feature on me with my story. So I just wanted to point that in, put that in, because I just think it's interesting that I'm kind of part of something that is new, and I trust. I trust these cleats, obviously with my Achilles, and I believe in the science. I back them fully, and I want to see these cleats be the future. And it's just cool to see Joe Flacco with that same mindset, and a guy who's in year 17 of his career. He's putting his lower body in the trust and hands of these cleats. Um, and it's really cool that this company I've shown support to them, and it seems like they're showing it to me too. And I just think that's really cool. So I'm giving Caddies Cleats a big, big, big shout out. And if you are an athlete that has had knee problems, ankle problems, anything, go get you a pair of cleats. Yeah, I feel like you have to. This is going to be the future. Teams are going to be. I feel like at some point teams are going to be mandating these cleats. I think that's just where we're at. So yep, I just had to put that out.
Not sponsored, by the way, although they
Not
should sponsor
sponsored.
us, please. No, Calvin, might need to get on that. We can have a sponsored segment highlighting their cleats, whatever they want. But
Maybe I'll talk about it. Maybe I'll talk with them tomorrow when I see them. But
shout out to
I just had to,
Calvin. Y'all definitely need to check out the story that they have with him whenever that releases. But it is a huge shout out to these cleats. We're not going to spend too much time on this because you kind of said your piece, Mike. You really covered it all. But I just wanted to say this is really important. Like all these things that they're coming up with to prevent injuries, whether it be the helmets, whether it be the cleats, anything you can do to keep players on the field is so huge and such an important development. So it's always interesting to see as this stuff progresses because it just impacts the game for the better. If you can have less injuries, more better players on the field, you get just better football. It's good for the teams, good for the fans, and of course, good for the players. Now, moving on to something not so good, the Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans. Ass. Ass. I felt like they were bad last year. I felt like last year was the panic where it's like, okay, we have quarterback issues. We kind of have a quarterback by committee, not really, but kind of do still. You get rid of Malik Willis, you go full into the Will Levis train, the full mustard man train, mayonnaise man, the full mayonnaise man train, and all he's been doing is giving you a new funny meme every week while shitting the bed. So I'm gonna give him ass, man. I mean, I don't see really anything redeeming with that team whatsoever. The only reason why they ain't damn dead last is because the Jaguars are trying to find a way to just outsuck them, and they're doing it. So I'll give them ass, man.
You know, I was thinking about which tier to put them in. They're ass. I mean, there's nothing redeeming. You're right. They've got Will Levis is not a good quarterback. It's not a good offense, and their defense has improved from last year. I'll give them that, but they suck. Shout out the AFC South though, because everyone said the NFC South they're going to be the worst division in the league. Well, look at the AFC South. You got the decidedly mid Colts, the ass Titans. You got the Texans, who they're good, but then you got our next team, our next ass tier, the Jaguars. I mean, is there really anything that you want to say about them?
Trevor Lawrence overrated. Doug Peterson fired.
Indeed.com.
Yeah, fire everyone.
Doug Peterson
They had
overrated, by the way.
yes, he's also overrated. You had one of the guys in the front office steal like $2 million, so y'all are cooked either way. You need to put them in the front. They're the most ass as
Well,
the
yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
only
So
team
the,
to
the
not win.
teams that are in the front of each tier, they're the best team in that tier. And,
So
I'd
okay,
argue the
yeah,
Patriots
see,
are better than the
I was thinking
Titans.
that they're the most ass, so then we put them in the front. I don't know, but I see where you're going. Um,
Yeah, that's more for consistency for like the Ravens. I think I put the Ravens over the Texans here, I think, for now. But they're close. But Bengals best team out of the panicking by virtue of Dolphins not having Tua back yet. But yeah, I mean, Jaguars suck. Let's move on
I
to
mean, we
the.
might have to make another tier. Is there a tier below ass? Do they get their own tier? They get the Jaguars tier. Do they get the Panthers and Jaguars tier? I don't know, but we can move on. Their ass, nothing to say about them. Sorry, Jags fans.
But anyway, moving on to a better team. We've got the Chiefs in the AFC West. What are you going to rank them?
I mean, they're undefeated. They won Super Bowl last year, contending. That's it. That's all I need to say.
I've got a hot take right here. I don't think that they look like a contender right now. I'm
Hey
gonna.
man, like I said, I'm respecting who they are. I'm respecting what they shown.
I
You're
was gonna say
undefeated and you won the Super Bowl. You have to put them in contending.
I'm putting them in contender. The reason I'm doing that though is just because of their defense right now. Their defense looks like it might be the best defense in the league. All their games have been close. They're winning these one-score games. They're almost losing a lot of games, but they're winning. And at the beginning of the season, if you win ugly, a win's a win. You'd rather win ugly early on than have pretty losses where you play beautiful ball. You could get those ugly wins and smooth out the kinks as the season goes on. My concern with the Chiefs is I don't know how much upside there is for their offense. If Rashee Rice is going to be done for the year, all of a sudden you're starting to get pretty thin at weapons. Who's your wide receiver one there? Is it Xavier Worthy? Because he's not a wide receiver one. He might be their most talented receiver that they have healthy, but his profile is not a wide receiver one. Travis Kelce, he's going to get a lot more targets now that Rice is out because Rice was taking all those targets that he would take over the middle of the field. But who are you throwing the ball to? Is it Juju? Is it Sky Moore? Is it someone that you trade for? There's definitely question marks, and they'll get Pacheco back so the run game will get better. But right now, I wouldn't say right now that they're a contender, but they're 4-0, so they're in a good position, and they're going to, as long as they don't have more major injuries, they're going to get better when Pacheco gets back. With that defense, they're a contender, but for me, they're on the cusp of these two tiers.
I can see it.
I respect them, but this is definitely the weakest the Chiefs have looked in a while. But moving on,
I agree.
we've got a group of 2-2 teams for the rest of the division. Let's just knock them out rapid fire because I think that they're all kind of similar. First off, the Chargers. Second off, the Raiders.
I'm gonna go mid. You don't have to panic about anything yet, other than your quarterback situation. But I think we all knew that going in.
And third off, the Broncos.
I'm gonna give them a hot take. I'm gonna say you're 2-2, but low key time to panic. I don't know. I'm fine putting them in mid. I'm fine putting them in time
I'm
to panic. I
putting
just
them
say
mid.
time to panic low key because your quarterback still stinks, and maybe it's just me shitting on Sean Payne a little bit. But I'm fine with mid. So let's go mid.
I think that they are as decidedly mid as possible because their offense is terrible, but their defense looks actually good. The past 2 weeks has been locked in. They've been improving, so they're decidedly mid. Like they are that tier to a T. But let's move on. We're going to the NFC. The NFC East, maybe the most mid division in the league. I think the AFC South, I don't even know if I could say the AFC South is worse because the rest of the teams might be worse, but the Texans still hold the water for that division. But anyway, let's start with the best team in that division. Who would have thought? The Washington Commanders.
Man, see, I feel like the NFC is skewing the results a little bit, man. I really do. Like, how can I evaluate a lot of these Sam teams?
That's why we're doing this.
So, I guess just off the strength of the record, but they haven't really beaten anybody with a defense. But I can't call them mid because you're winning games.
I think what I'm gonna, I think I completely get where you're coming from, and I'm on the same wavelength. They're a solid team, but they're towards the bottom of that tier. They've got potential to get better. They've got a really good rookie quarterback who has been playing out of his mind. I wouldn't say out of his mind, but he's been playing for a rookie, like not making mistakes. He has the highest completion percentage ever for a rookie through his first 4 games. He's taking care of the ball, checking all those boxes that you want. And I think there's still potential for that offense to improve as they open it up, take more deep shots, do more of what Jaden's good at. I think that they're a solid team, and it's crazy to think about, and they might fall off once they start playing better competition. But when we were doing the recap of all the games, we looked at their schedule. They have a pretty easy schedule. They've got a few tough games, like going to the Ravens, like I think they're playing at the Steelers. I know they play against them. It might be at home, but they play at the Saints. They play like at the Eagles. Maybe you call that a tough game, but I don't think the Eagles are very good. But other than that, they've got a lot of very winnable games. The division's definitely very much within reach for them.
I would say a more accurate way to describe a team like this, with this tier, is, to me, is you're not mid, you're not contending, obviously, you're a solid team, but you're on a seesaw. You're at the tip of it. you're in a balance. It can either go bad for you or it can go good for you. You're at that point to where depending on your coaching, depending on whatever, you can either have a good rest of the year or a bad one. So that's where I have the Washington Commanders at. Um, there's another team I have in that I think we all probably know. Shout out to the drinking game, but we're gonna get to them later. So what we got next?
Well, we got a fun one next. The Philadelphia Eagles. I want to hear your thoughts first.
God damn it! See, it's kind of like what I just said. I mean, you have one of the more talented NFC rosters. You do, but you've underperformed. And I mentioned when we were making the tier list before, I mentioned that we're underperforming and that there should be a tier for teams like that who have good rosters but are underperforming. But we kind of threw the Bengals in that time to panic. They kind of have a good roster. They have good pieces, and they're not performing. And you said, hey, Nick Sirianni is Zach Taylor, and Zach Taylor is Nick Sirianni. So I'm actually going to say, because of those criteria, what does that sound the most like? Time to
Time
panic.
to panic. That is exactly where I'm at with this team. You could definitely argue that they should be in the mid tier based off of their talent, but I have said this all season. I think the Eagles are not a good team. They're one of the most talented teams in the league, and yet they just can't put it together. We went over all of this already, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but they got a coach that I think is on that Zach Taylor career arc where makes it to a Super Bowl but doesn't do anything after. It's kind of like a former Eagles coach. The only difference was that he won it in Doug Peterson, and look where he's at now with the Jaguars. They've got a quarterback that turns the ball over like crazy, and their offensive coordinator, I think, is overrated. The Cowboys looked better after he left. The Chargers actually struggled while he was there. Now the Eagles are struggling. Yes, you can say that they're missing their top two weapons right now, but they're a team that I think has plateaued, and it might be time to make some changes. I think Sirianni, yes, he creates some good vibes there, but he doesn't really do much as a coach, I don't think, for this team. When they lost their coordinators, Steichen and Gannon, to the Colts and Cardinals. It really hurt this team, and they haven't really recovered. I think it is time to panic. Another team. Now this is a tough one for me. The Dallas Cowboys, 2-2. Is it time to panic, or are they just ass? I'll be
Well,
nice to
well,
I'll
you
be nice
see,
to them, and I'll say that it's time to panic because I don't think that they're a good team. I think they have the talent that they're not the Patriots, Titans, or Jaguars. Their run defense is down there, but they're another dead team. They're probably even deader than the Eagles, where, I mean, that coaching staff is going after this season, and they're already kind of locked in to their money because they paid CD, they paid Dak. They're probably going to pay Parsons. I mean, maybe they don't if the wheels fall off, but they're locking in their money, and they're below decidedly mid at this point because there's not much upside. It's time to panic.
well, you know, it's kind of like a dichotomous key for me right now. At this point, we've laid out a solid groundwork of teams and why they're in the tiers they are, and it's like how I got from because I was going to put the Eagles in mid, but as I talked about it more, it just starts sounding more and more and more like what we talked about why the Bengals are there. So if I just keep talking, I'm going to end up talking myself into Cowboys. It's time to panic because, like you said, I got your money tied up. You have I'm gonna say you have probably one of the worst GMs in the league right now. He is way too egotistical, way too prideful, and it's time for him to go. But he will never go because he's your owner, unfortunately. Um, and he's not helping that team. He's a detriment to the team, and the team at this point is winning despite of Jerry Jones' best efforts. Am I going to say they're in a worse position than the Bengals? No, I don't. Um, but I mean, I think you can fix the team. I think you can. You know what you need to do. It's just it's just will Jerry do it? And
Nope.
I think really your biggest issue is Jerry. That is your biggest problem with the
Jerry
Cowboys.
and the
Is Jerry
quarterback
Jones.
market, because the quarterback
Jerry and the
market
quarterback.
made them pay Dak Prescott that much money to keep him. Because if they wanted to keep Dak Prescott, they had to give him that much money. He's not worth that much money. Most quarterbacks are not worth that much money. I would say that much money is worth for a top three quarterback. He's not a top three
Well,
quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but he's not top three. He's overpaid. And that's what you see with all these teams. They pay their quarterbacks this much, and then, especially if they pay a receiver that much, they get worse because they have to make sacrifices elsewhere. It's just rough. We've talked about this a ton. QB market is an absolute mess. Let's move on to the Giants, though. I'm not going to put them ass actually, because even though Daniel Jones might be, they have a little bit to look forward to, courtesy of Malik Neighbors just being that guy. It's certainly time to panic for that team, and they're certainly down towards the bottom of it. But shout out Malik getting them a tier up in my book. But do you agree with that, or should we bump them down?
you know, I might have to bump him down because I don't see hope with this team outside of Malik. I don't. Uh, I mean, what do you have to look forward to? You're paying Daniel Jones, and it's once again the QB market, and it's like
Yeah.
with the Cowboys. Imagine if Jerry Jones would have just paid Dak Prescott a year ago or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He probably could have saved himself probably almost 50, 60, 70, maybe even 100 million. Probably about $70 million. Could have, but lesson learned, I guess. Um, I don't, I don't see a way.
Yeah, I
I
think you're
just, I
right. I
don't see a
think
way for the Giants.
we
I
don't need to
don't.
spend too much time on the Giants. They do belong in the ass. The one thing that I was going to say that gave me not hope for them, but put me maybe above those other teams is they looked like they're pretty much on the same level as the Cowboys. So maybe that's a testament to the Cowboys just being ass. But yeah, let's move on, because we don't need to talk about them. The Vikings, though, this is an interesting team to talk about. I will
Uh,
say, I know
Damn
you
it!
have been a
I
lot lower
don't.
on them before this week. You didn't really think that they were anything special. I was pretty high on the Vikings because I really liked what O'Connell's doing with that offense, and I really, really like what Beeflo's doing with that defense. Where do you rank them, though?
Well, hey, I'm a man of my word. I already said, hey, if you're undefeated, I know I said respect the past, respect what you've done recently. They wasn't on nothing last year, but their offense was pretty scary in my opinion last year. And if some injuries didn't happen, then I think they would have gotten farther than they did. Um, I'm fine with putting them in contender, maybe too early. So at the very least, I'm okay with putting them maybe in between Baltimore, maybe in front of Baltimore. That's a solid team. I I'm conflicted, so I'm going to reserve the final vote to you.
I was conflicted too, but thinking about it, I think if the Chiefs are in there at contender, I think that they are right below the Chiefs there as a contender.
They're
They're,
undefeated. I gotta respect the
you got to
undefeated record.
respect the undefeated.
I respect it.
And you got to respect the undefeated, and you also got to respect the way that they beat the Texans, who they're a solid team. You've got a lot to like with that team. They just completely dominated that game. I mean, I know it just was one of those days for the Texans, but that shows how the defensive game for the Vikings works. They were able to get pressure by blitzing, obviously, but also by showing blitz and getting the Texans to overslide, to overcompensate, and then leaving one-on-one matchups that their defensive ends could win. They're just a really good team. They mix up their looks on defense. They just make it difficult for an offense because they got to think for that extra second. Offensively, Kevin O'Connell's done a great job implementing his scheme. Darnold's first 8 completions were to 8 different receivers this past game. It just shows what can be done there. So shout out to them. Moving on to the next team, though, we've got the Green Bay Packers. Where do you rank them?
I'm gonna say, even though they're 2-2, I'm okay with giving them solid team because I feel like mid is a little harsh. You won games with Malik Willis. I think that in itself deserves a little bit more praise than mid. Um, and you lost to a team who we put in contender, and you only lost by like a touchdown. You came back and fought hard. Jordan Love looks okay. I'm okay with putting them in solid team. I feel like it's a little unfair to put them in mid, and also considering that they were a playoff team last year who just kind of came out of nowhere, and also they're still a very young team. I believe. Well, are they still the youngest team now, or is it now the Texans? I think it's still them. So
Yeah,
young team. I'm fine. Put them solid.
I agree exactly what you're saying there. I think they're definitely a solid team. They have a lot of room for improvement too, as Love is healthy. My question for you is, where do you rank them on that solid team list? Who do you put them right in between?
Well, I think I'll put them in between the Texans and Steelers because I trust Jordan Love more than I trust Justin Fields right now.
That's fair. And
And
I mean, we've seen that in action in that division. Do have to apologize. We skipped over the Lions. Where do you rank them?
I really want to do it because I love seeing the Lions win, and I do like the team. I'm gonna throw the contender at them. I mean, hey, you know what? I'm okay with doing it. I'm okay with them being solid too, but I'm okay with throwing them in contender, man. I really am. I love Jameson Williams coming out a little bit more. Amon Ra is top 5 receiver in the league. Sam Laporta, he's gonna kick it up. Jared Goff just threw a perfect game on Monday Night Football.
Thing of beauty.
And the thing of beauty. And even though
And
I don't
caught
like
a
Jared Goff,
pass for a touchdown.
and caught a pass for a touchdown. Even though I don't like
Perfect
Jared
throw
Goff,
by Amon-Ra.
said things he said after the no call, but I gotta let that go at some point. And you have a great offensive line that can bruise people up. Your defense has improved a little bit from last year. Still not the best, but it gets the job done. And you have the best running back duo in the league. I mean, these two are knuckles and sign. They are maybe the new Boom and Zoom. It hurts my heart to say that, but I think I'm okay with giving them that title. Yeah, you got to give them contender, man. They,
Well,
they they got pieces that can work.
I'm going to keep this one quick. I agree with everything that you said. I think that they are a very, very solid team. I'm also going to stick to my grading scale that I said. They do have some questions after that loss that they had to the Bucks. I think they are the top of the solid team tier and probably will creep into that contender tier. But they're also second in their division right now. So I think there are a couple of little questions and just the fact that their team, they weren't expected to make it to the championship last year. They make it all the way to the NFC Championship. Now they've got to do the hard part, doing that as a team with expectations. I think that they are a team that's fully capable of doing that. I just want to see them go dominate like they did tonight and continue that, and they will easily be a contender for me, but I'm just sticking to my grading scale. Moving on, we got the Bears. I mean,
Time to
bottom
panic.
of decidedly mid.
Time to panic. Time
Time
to
to
panic.
panic.
Time to panic. Time to panic because you put way too many expectations on Caleb Williams, and I do respect trying to go and get players. You got Keenan Allen. Y'all obviously made the move for DJ Moore earlier with Justin Fields. You ain't gonna get DeAndre Swift. And it's funny that we talk bad about DeAndre Swift, and then all of a sudden he just decides, I'm gonna be good at running the ball again. I
To
just
be
found
fair,
that
it was against probably the second worst rush defense in the league behind the Cowboys.
it was, but then again, you did what you had to do. So I just thought that was funny. Roma Dunze and uh Caleb not really clicking right now. The offense is all out of whack. They still need to figure things out. You're panicking because you thought you would be a little better than this. I think they had a little more expectations.
And you're panicking
It's that bad.
because did you take the wrong quarterback?
And are you panicking because your O-line still sucks ass?
Oh, their O-line is terrible. And that's one of the big reasons that he sucks. The other reason is they hired an offensive coordinator that got let go by his team last year in Shane Waldron, who has not been good this season. wasn't good last season. I don't know why they brought him in and thought it was a good marriage with the rookie quarterback, but interesting decision by them. I mean, yeah, the only caveat I say with putting them in time to panic is a little bit strong when you have a rookie quarterback, but they were a team with expectations. They thought that they could be pushing for the playoffs. They're not even close to that. They look shit. Let's move on to the NFC South. Unfortunately, at the top of the division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think
Uh,
about them?
I don't want to say it. Solid team. You know what? Baker is worth every penny they're paying him.
Top 5 quarterback, right? Shout
Yep.
out Preston.
Shout out Preston.
For
They
those of
are
you that
stealing
don't
wins.
know, Preston is a firm believer, and he said this before week 1, that Baker Mayfield is a top 5 quarterback.
Hey, man, I respect it. I respect the opinion. I respect what he's doing. I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin just won't goddamn die. They won't. They just won't go away. And Baker, one of the most resilient guys in the league. Give it up to him. Give him his flowers. I know I was one making fun of that team after I saw that footage of the Bucks mini camp, and they had Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, and they both were missing every single pass. And I just thought this is going to be terrible. And then Derek Carr decided, no man, I'm gonna show you terrible, and he did. So
Yeah, I mean,
solid team
solid team. I agree with you, so I'm going to ask you, where do you rank them on there?
because I'm a hater. I'm putting them last. So I don't think I need to say that any further as a Saints fan.
All right, well,
I'm not gonna be
I'm a
fair. I'm
Saints
not
fan
gonna
as
be
well.
fair. I'm
I
not gonna
will
be
be
fair.
fair.
I'm not. I'm not.
Rank them ahead
I'm
of
okay with taking the
Washington.
L and not being fair. You be
Rank
fair.
them
I'm not.
ahead of the Steelers.
No.
I
I can't do it. I can't do it. I know I
I'm
know
gonna
to do
hot
it,
take.
but I can't.
Maybe it's a hot take. I will rank them ahead of the Packers and put them right in between the Packers and the Texans. I think I hate that this is that I think this is true, but I think that they are a very solid team. They have a good defense. They have a good quarterback on a relatively cheap contract, and they have good weapons around him in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And they're doing a great job of utilizing them, moving Godwin to the slot. They're a solid team. I hate it. But moving on, let's hear your thoughts on the Saints.
Oh they're contenders. I mean, we don't need to talk about that further. They're obviously contenders, best team in the league. Um, no, see, here's the thing. I don't want to call my team mid. I don't. I don't believe it. I don't believe we're mid. We've had mid tendencies, but what team doesn't have mid tendencies? I think you are 2 plays away from being 4-0. And that's not me being biased, maybe a little bit, but not really. Because that's just the truth of the matter. Your defense is elite. You've given up 47 points in 4 weeks. You've only given up 4 touchdowns on defense in 4 games. 1 touchdown a game, basically. You're giving up 7 points. That's basically what you're saying. You're giving up only 7 points a game, 1 touchdown. And you lose because of bad decision by a punt returner. You lose because of a bad decision by your offensive coordinator and head coach and going for it. You lose because of a pass interference call. The defense is so good. It's kind of like what you said with the Jets, right? The Jets defense is carrying them a little bit. Same
It's
with
so good, except for when you
it's so
decide to
good
run press man in 2 minute when the team needs a chunk play and it bites you in back to back weeks.
every time. But I just feel like I just feel like that defense is better than every defense in decidedly mid, even the Broncos, who you put there because their defense is so good. And then I felt like what we did, putting up 40, yeah, we get Panthers and the Cowboys. I just feel like the offense, and also have to take into account how many injuries we have and where we have these injuries. Not how many, it's where the injuries are. We
You,
have injuries in positions we absolutely could not afford to have injuries in.
the problem with that is it's the Saints. We're injured like this every year, so you can't really use injuries as an excuse because it's almost an expectation. And that just speaks to, we need to get, I don't know if it's strength staff, medical staff, what we do in practice. Something is going wrong. I mean, we're the same team that misdiagnosed a player that had was it a broken leg? We were like, oh yeah, it's like a contusion.
Oh yeah, it's like a sprained ankle. Like no, my ankle's finna fall off
Yeah.
the bone, and
But
just
no,
a
we
sprained
had a
ankle.
player with a broken, I think it was leg, that we misdiagnosed. This was a while ago, but I think it's still the same medical staff.
Was it
Misdiagnosed as
was
a
it
contusion.
it wasn't shit. Was it Keenan Lewis?
Was it
I
Delvin
know they.
Bro? I think it was
Oh,
Delvin Bro.
Delvin Bro. Yeah, I knew it was one corner that played with it. It was Delvin Bro. They misdiagnosed him, and obviously they misdiagnosed uh Michael Thomas. But it's so weird because we found a heart issue with God damn it, what's that D lineman's name? It was on the tip of my tongue. We signed him from the Lions. I was looking so forward to having him
Oh,
on the team.
yeah. It's on the
Oh, he
tip of
was
my
really
tongue.
good. He's a really good fish
This is
tackle.
like 10 years ago, but would have been, he was one of the best D tackles in the league at the time.
Hold on, I'm quickly looking up.
But anyway, while he looks that up, we're not going to yap about the Saints too much because we do
Oh,
that.
they also found Foster Moreau cancer too. So our fucking med staff is so weird, so weird.
But anyway, we yap about the Saints too much, so we're not making this an entire Saints segment. As for the ranking, so how do you rank a team that's simultaneously a contender and time to panic? That is
Solid,
where
solid team.
that
Solid
is where
team.
the Saints are right now. After
Still a
week
solid
2,
team.
up here. After week 4, right here, time to panic. I mean, I hate doing this. I absolutely hate doing this as a fan. I'm putting them in decidedly mid until they prove to me otherwise. Until we can beat the Falcons when they don't score an offensive touchdown. Until we can beat a team that we have on the ropes and they have to go drive down and have a crazy drive to win it. That's a decidedly mid team. It sucks, but that's the performances the Saints have put up. They dominated the first 2 weeks against bad teams. I think the Eagles are a bad team. They're better than those two teams, but should have won that game, looked terrible and didn't win, even though the Eagles try to hand it to us. Then we go against the Falcons. We're clearly the better team, but like you said, muffin the punt, terrible pick six, just all of these things. Unfortunately, this is a mid team right now.
Nick
Moving on.
Fairley, by the way, guys, found the name. Nick Fairley.
Nick Fairley,
That was a defense
yes.
back. Oh man,
That
what a
sucked, but we needed
he
him
had a
too. But
career high in tackles and sacks. I think it was the year that we signed him. He had a career high in tackles and sacks, and then we gave him a 4-year, $30 million extension. And the same medical staff that didn't know somebody's neck was fractured or broken or leg was broken, and the same medical staff that didn't know that I think thought Michael Thomas's like damn near broken ankle was turf toe. Somehow, someway found a heart defect with this guy, and then found cancer in Foster Moreau, and also found something in Kiki. What's his name? Kiki and Wildway, the punt returner from the Vikings, to where he couldn't sign here. So I don't know.
I don't know.
The
It's
medical
almost
staff
like
is
they
the same
should
as the
just be
team.
focusing on diagnosing diseases and working at a hospital instead of diagnosing injuries. But I
Well,
digress. We
we
need to
we,
move
we
on.
are
This
we're,
was supposed to be a
yeah,
quick segment, and it's been anything but that.
we're
So
terrible at it. We're terrible at going quick. All right,
we
who's
are
next?
terrible.
Falcons.
That's the thing. We
Falcons.
just skip
Mid.
mid.
Actually, ass. We have to do it. We have to do it. We have to do it. For the memes, ass. I'm putting him in ass.
I'm
Because
putting
fuck them. Fuck the Falcons. Fuck them. I don't care. This our. You know what? This is your show, man. This is your show. You're a Saints fan. You know what to do. You know what to do.
They're at the bottom of ass. I mean, there's. You know what? I will give the Falcons some credit. I will give them some credit and say they're better than the Panthers.
They're better than the Panthers.
Moving on to the NFC West, we've got the
Well, you didn't put the
division.
Panthers. Did you put the Panthers there? Ass. We know who the Panthers are. Ass.
Oh,
Put them with
yeah,
the
no,
ass.
I'll put the Panthers right behind the Falcons. But moving on, we've got division leading Seahawks in the NFC West, Who would have thought that? Now, they did just get whooped by the Lions, and you could say that all their wins were against pretty bad teams. I mean, they beat the ass Patriots, they beat the time to panic Bengals, and they beat, who was the other one? I'm going to blank it out on this. The Broncos, who are mid. Where do you put the Seahawks?
3-1. You lost to a solid team. Solid team. I don't right now. I think they're better than the Saints, who are at the top of the decidedly mid. I mean,
I agree. I'm going to put them at the bottom
win's a
of
win,
solid
man.
team, though.
Win is winning. Winning's winning.
They're winning. And hey, it's like we say, win ugly early, win however you need. Those wins are wins, and they add up as the season goes on. I'll put them at the bottom of solid team right now with who we have because I don't think they're better than any of those teams. Maybe Washington they are better than, but how
I think
they
they need to really
if
ask
we look,
themselves, how far can Gino Reed take us, and maybe we should look for another option. That's what I
but
think.
if you look at trends, I think that's fair. Moving on, we've got the 49ers surprisingly at 2-2. This is a weird team.
I am gonna make a statement. I know I said there's all this shit about you're a contender automatically if you play in the Super Bowl and da 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 da. Da. Yeah, but I'm giving them time to panic because God damn it, I talked myself into it. Christian McCaffrey every single damn week. It's like he just have a calf strain. Nope, he has a kid tonight. Nope, now he has bilateral, and next week gonna be nope, he doesn't have a leg anymore. So I'm time to panic because your starting running back is getting hit with the Madden curse. Yes, Jordan Mason is doing well, but that's just Shanahan thing.
Well, that's the thing. It's a Shanahan thing, so it's going to be plug and play. That loss to the Rams is terrible. The loss to the Vikings, at the time, people were saying, oh, that's a bad loss. Well, Vikings, we have them as a contender right now. I mean, they're 4-0, look great. That was on the road for the 49ers. They look good this week, but it's against the Patriots. Their schedule the next 2 weeks is the Cardinals and Seahawks before they take on the Chiefs. I think if they lose either one of those games and then are facing the Chiefs, it's time to panic. But right now, I think they're fine. I'll throw them in.
I think maybe I'm just projecting a little bit because I think there's just players on there that are making me say that this is time to panic because you paid Brandon Ayuk and he has not come on. He's actually played worse. You have injuries right now that you're dealing with, and on top of all of that, you are starting slow, so slow for a team that is fresh off of a pretty good game against the Chiefs. A game you could say they should have won in the Super Bowl. For them to be sitting 2-2 is not okay. But I'm fine putting them aside team. But I think one more week of this, and
That's what
they'll put their
exactly.
asses firmly in time to panic. Um, Best team in time to panic though,
That's
mind you.
that's what I'm saying. Right now, they're a solid team. They're hanging in there. I'm gonna give them credit where credit's due. They're a well-coached team. Got a lot of talent. If they can get healthier, that'll help them out a lot. But if they lose either of their next 2 games, it's time to panic. It's, I'll almost say, even though that they're the tougher team, especially if they lose. I mean, no, if they lose to the Cardinals, that's just bad. But if they lose to the Seahawks, they're behind the 8 ball against the Seahawks already. Have to win that game just to split. Seahawks get to pull away in the division a bit. And then they got to play the Chiefs. So you're a solid team now, but lock in or it's time to panic. But Cardinals, we've got them next.
I don't want to
Decidedly
throw them in
mid.
the ass, and I don't know how I can possibly fit them into time to panic. So I think if I was really honestly, I'll probably say
No,
they're just one ass. You know, maybe not ass, but I don't know. What are they panicking about? I mean,
that's what I was going to say. I was thinking they're decidedly mid, but then I look at the teams that are here. They're worse than the Eagles. They're maybe worse than the Bengals. I mean, Bengals are more talented, but they don't perform. I'll put them right in between the Bengals and the Cowboys. I think the one thing they have to panic about is year 2 with this coaching staff not looking too hot. If it continues, might be time to panic for their jobs in year 3. Rams, definitely time to panic, but how much are you panicking?
are they time to panic though? Outside of the injuries, I mean, Okay, I'll say it like this: time to panic for Cooper Cup because this is year two of you throw him the ball more than 5 times a game and he's just gonna die. Um, Kyron Williams, he's good. Matt Stafford, he's good. But you find yourself in this situation again where you are scrounging for receivers. You don't have Aaron Donald to save your ass on defense anymore. Um, but again, I don't. I mean, outside of the injuries, I mean, I don't really know what you're panicking for. I mean, they to me are a mid team. That's just what they are. Uh, I mean, you got injuries. Uh, I mean, you just
See,
like I said, I don't really know what what are you panicking for? I mean, there's nothing that has happened. None of these losses have been indicators of that shouldn't have happened. Like it's
I mean,
just,
I don't know. They lost 41-10 against the Cardinals.
hey man, look, I always tell people this when it comes to divisional games or interdivisional games. I I I take those with a grain of salt because I understand how hard division rivals play against each other, and it really doesn't matter what the records are.
I mean, yeah, look at their win
You're
against the
always going to
Niners.
get a hard, yeah. You know what I mean, you're always going to get a hard game out of your division rivals.
Hey, we need to
So
get out of here though. So I think
I'm
time to
fine with
panic.
coming mid. Time to panic or mid doesn't really matter. Fuck them. I
They're
don't
1-3.
care.
It's time to panic. Where do you rank them?
I'm fine with putting them either in between Chicago and the Dolphins or above Chicago.
I think by virtue of Chicago beating them, I'll put Chicago over them. And just because I think Chicago has more room to improve. Well, no. I mean, if the Rams get healthy, they're going to be the better team. Yes, the Bears just beat them, so it's kind of weird. But I think I still like the Rams more over a whole season. So here we have it, though. This is our tier list. We want to reiterate that we were being stingy on contenders because we don't want to just hand that out to anyone. You've got to be.
And of course, the Falcons. Nope, the Falcons are asshats. No, I ain't even gonna say it. Nope, Falcons are asshats. I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to see no ats. I don't want anybody. But the Falcons is that. Don't worry about it. If you know, you know.
But that's about it. This is how we rank the teams. So if you disagree, because I'm sure that there will be plenty of people that disagree with our list, leave a comment and say why we're stupid and why your favorite team should be where they should be.